This week on Perspective, a despot steps down. Zimbabwe after Mugabe's 37-year rule. It was just about 4 weeks ago that the latest political drama began to unfold in Zimbabwe. The only president most Zimbabweans have ever known, 93-year-old Robert Mugabe, fires his longtime ally and vice president. It's widely interpreted as part of an internal political fight, clearing the way for Mugabe's wife, Grace, to succeed him. It doesn't turn out that way.
This is not a military takeover.
In a matter of days, the military makes its move, takes control of the state broadcaster, puts Mugabe under house arrest, and announces that it is arresting so-called criminals that the military leadership say have harmed the economy. Thousands of people pour into the streets of the capital, Harare, demanding Mugabe resign. The Central Committee of Mugabe's ruling party, ZANU-PF, threatens impeachment. And finally, Mugabe, the revolutionary independence leader, the ruthless authoritarian, the so-called father of a nation, steps down after 37 years in power. There's dancing in the streets.
What does stop mean? It means that we are the ones who put you there. Don't forget that we are the ones who remove you there.
The man he fired, Emmerson Mnangagwa, former vice president and former security and intelligence chief with close ties to the military, becomes president.
Once we cannot change the past, there is a lot we can do in the present and the future.
So what lies ahead for Zimbabwe and its people? A country which once boasted of one of the most developed economies in Africa is in collapse, driven by mismanagement, corruption, food shortages, and famine. This week on the program, a closer look at whether this is indeed a turning point in Zimbabwe's history. We have perspectives from Harare and expert views on the political and economic complexity that lie ahead. We begin with Jeffrey Moyo, a Zimbabwean journalist and correspondent for the New York Times. We reached him in Harare, and we apologize for the quality of the phone line. Jeffrey, the events of the past few weeks have had a little bit of time to sink in now. How would you describe the atmosphere in Harare?
Okay, right now I can safely say things are getting back to normal. The soldiers have moved away from the streets. They've taken away the tankers. Then they've gone back to the barracks after President Robert Mugabe resigned, tendered in his resignation in a dramatic move, actually stepping down after 37 years of being in power here in the Southern African nation.
But President Mnangagwa was also very close to Mugabe himself. I mean, I've heard this change described as just a redistribution of power within the already existing ruling elite. Is it real change, do you think?
Yes, Emmerson Mnangagwa was very close to Mugabe, but you should also remember that in the final days, before Mugabe was thrown out of office or before Mugabe resigned, they had become bitter foes because Emmerson Mnangagwa was leading a faction in the ruling party, a faction called Timla Coast, opposed to another faction which was led by Grace Mugabe, President Robert Mugabe's former President Robert Mugabe's wife. So, being opposed to Mugabe's wife, he became a serious enemy of Robert Mugabe and everything that Mugabe was doing. And therefore, he had become tied to Mugabe's policies. He had become opposed to Mugabe's policies as a result.
What do people think about the immunity that's being granted to Mugabe and his wife, Grace, and also the millions of dollars that go with that?
The majority of people seem to be comfortable with him this side, considering the fact that he seems to be taking a path that is totally opposed to Robert Mugabe. Yes, they link him to his past of being a mastermind between the genocidal atrocities that took place around 2000, that took place in the 1980s, which indeed were led by him. Sorry for the noise that is coming from this side.
Tell me, what will you be watching for over the coming weeks that might signal, apart? You mentioned the cabinet, but what are the key things to be watching for now?
We are looking forward to Zimbabwe being readmitted into the Commonwealth. You should remember that Robert Mugabe pulled out this country from the Commonwealth. Emmerson Mnangagwa has already indicated that his government is going to work with the rest of the world, and his willingness to also be readmitted into the Commonwealth. We are looking forward to major developments as a result of this new leader. Although some other groups are skeptical about what really Emmerson Mnangagwa is going to do.
Jeffrey, thank you very much for your time.
You're most welcome.